that in the chat so that you can refer back to it if you want to, although it doesn't say an awful lot, but I have put some links in at the end that you might find useful. Right, so first of all, so what we're going to look at in this session is what is a class notebook, how to access it. A class notebook is part of the OneNote tool within Office 365. How we're going to distribute pages, by that I mean kind of like, so you can create a worksheet, how you're going to actually get them out to the students, and then we're going to have a look at how you're going to know that they've actually participated and done something on that worksheet, had a go at filling it out. Now we're going to have a quick look at how to distribute the worksheets through Teams, in case you're using Teams assignments with your students. And then we're going to go back and have a look at how to actually create a worksheet and how we're going to invite creative responses. The great thing about using the OneNote class notebook tool is that you can, it is a free form tool for note taking, so you can be quite creative with its use and the way that you ask them to use it. I'm not sure I've done brilliant examples, I've done my best, but you've probably got much better ideas than me. So OneNote, of which class notebook is part of, is a free-form note-taking tool. So essentially it is a notebook which you can add sections to and pages to, and within this online notebook you have blank pages which can be as wide or as long as you want, and on those pages you can type, draw, use digital ink, you can add videos, images, you can attach files, you can dictate to it, and you can add audio files. If anybody has been having a go with the Access for All tools within you know, the Office 365 suite, they work really well in class notebooks. So if you are interested in your students dictating rather than typing, or interested in using the immersive reader rather than having to read stuff themselves, then it's a great tool if you want to use those features as well, because they all work really well. The way that class notebook and OneNote stand out from actually, you know, a physical notebook obviously is all to do with collaboration. So you can create a OneNote notebook and share it with a colleague or with a student, and both have access to it. And a class notebook is essentially a OneNote where the collaboration is controlled to be useful for a class use. So within a class notebook you will have an area where everybody can add stuff, an area where the teacher can add stuff and the students can read it, and for each individual student you will have an area where just you as the teacher and the student can add stuff, and this will become a portfolio for them because it's a private area between you and that student, so they can, you know, write stuff and leave comments and work on sheets, and it won't be shared with the whole class. Right, so how to access OneNote. So OneNote is part of the Office 365 suite, so you can access it from the waffle, but there are, and that will give you a web-based version, which is really stable, and it's one of the best ones to use. I think it's one that I usually use, and it's a great one to tell your students to use if they're accessing it. There are desktop versions which you then have to sync, but they're a little bit, if you've got a wonky connection like I've had today, they're a bit more stable to use, in that you can work on them kind of offline, and then you have to remember to sync them afterwards. So they sometimes feel a little bit more stable to work on. And the additional advantage is that the Office, the 2016 version will highlight, if something has happened within it since the last time you accessed it, it will make it bold, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but if you've got loads of students and you haven't set up any way of finding out who's participated on your worksheets or not, you can just go and have a look and see whose name is bold, and it's a really quick, easy way of working out who's accessed it and who hasn't. There is a little feature in OneNote which I've just left in to mention, which is called Quick Note, which is you just press the Windows key and N, and that will allow you to start on with a, you know, like just a separate sheet, almost like a piece of paper that's been torn out of your notebook. Just if you want to start adding content if you're, you know, on the fly and think of something to add. So that's really good, and then you can incorporate it later. There is also the OneNote app on your phone which you can access Class Notebook from, so your students could use that if they like to. Right, so I'm just going to demonstrate this now, stop waffling on, and the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how to distribute pages through Class Notebook. So to do this, you create the worksheet in the content library or teacher only area, one of the areas that is kind of not a student area essentially, and then you can distribute it using the Class Notebook distribute page menu, and then you should be able to review the student work afterwards. So let me have a look at this. This is a Class Notebook which I've already created. I'm going to go through the process of creating one in a minute, and I've called this one Year 7 Chemistry because I'm pretending that we're teaching chemistry today. And within this, I have, when I set it up, I said that we wanted a collaboration space. So within this space, everybody, me, the teacher, other teachers and the students can all add and edit to the collaboration space. So that's great for working on group projects and things like that. The content library space is the area to use where you are putting content in and the students can read it but they can't edit it. And that's where I've started adding my worksheets. And the ones that are within this content library are kind of like the main version and can't be edited by the students. There's a teacher only area which you could use to create your sheets if you didn't want the students to see them, kind of like all of them in situ, like all of them before they use them kind of thing. The teacher only area is also good if you've got any trackers or anything you want to, notes you want to keep on the students that you don't want them to read. And then for each student, of which I've got 2 in this class, this is their area, so they can edit anything in here. So only Oliver can edit this and only Stanley can edit this because they have separate areas. And I have pre-formatted this during the setup process to have these 3 sections in. So if that makes sense so far. So the massive thing to get your head around with the Class Notebook is that these areas, the Oliver's area and Stanley's area, we can become a portfolio for Oliver to add all his work to. And I know that at Scarborough we do use this with our courses, particularly the care courses, where they're collecting, photographic evidence, of their coursework as they go on, and if they've had any experience with something, they can photograph it, and they're creating these portfolios all the time, and we use this tool for the students to create their portfolio in, and the teacher can access it any time and have a look at what they're doing, kind of thing. So your Class Notebook could be one Class Notebook for your whole class for the whole year, but probably better as a Class Notebook for a project or for one kind of like, a topic or for one area. You can have as many as you like, obviously. Right, so within the content library, which as I said can just be edited by the teachers, I've created a worksheet called a section on the pH scale, and I've created this, which took me about 5 minutes, introduction to what pH is, and I've just copy and pasted this straight in. I've copied a link to a video from YouTube. You don't have to embed it or anything like that. You just put the link in and press return and it will place the video in for you viewable, which is quite easy to do. And I've put in a link to our website here, which when the students clicked on it, it would take them to that link. And then my first task, task 1, is on. So what I've done is I've created a little bit like a worksheet. I haven't taken it from anything else, I've just made it up. The first activity is use these stickers to identify where, so you can drag things about. Within OneNote, it is really flexible, and as I say, this is as wide as long as you need it to be, and the items float on little pallets, so you can actually move them about. So I could say, is this end acid? I can't remember. And then I could move this one and put this on the other end. So the students could do this as an activity. As this is my main copy, I'm going to pop it back for now. The next thing I've done is universal indicator, and I've mentioned, a video, but it hasn't actually put the as I say, we've had terrible connections. It's not going to let me put the link in. I normally put the YouTube video in there. I'm not quite sure why that hasn't happened. Just didn't check it. But that is a YouTube video on how to make your own universal indicator. And then the next activity I said is highlight these substances to the colour that you think they would test with the universal. I'm not worded that very well, but you get the drift. I'm asking the students to highlight this. So they could then go to the drawing tools and pick up a highlighter pen and say, I think I'll go for this colour for acid. Let's judge my, and they can kind of do some kind of identification. It kind of leaves it quite open for them to do it however they want. They could just write, they could click and type the word next to it if they wanted to, or they could, you know, put that neutral. They could draw a circle around it using the pen if they'd rather, or they could use the highlighter pen as I suggested to them. It doesn't really matter, it's kind of making it nice, and it's up to them how they present the information to you on the sheet. And then here I said, explain how acids and alkalis are used in the human body for digestion. And I've mentioned here a couple of the accessibility tools, which might just actually make life easier. And I've said, well, you could use the dictate tool if you'd like to. They can type it by popping their cursor in, if they're not still drawing, and just start typing away. Or if they wanted, they could use the dictate tool, which is on the home, I believe. Acids and alkalis are used in the human body. Stop picking it up very well, but they could record it if they didn't want to type it, or if they wanted, they could also insert a audio file here. Click on here. Acids and alkalis are used in the human body in the digestive tract, I think. And then when I stop that, it will actually embed the audio recording from the student. So if they really, you know, can't type, have a broken arm, whatever it is that's stopping them participating in that way, they could do the audio recording and the information is still there for you. So that's kind of what we're talking about with the worksheet. Do stop me if you want to ask anything, I don't mind at all. Let's have a look now to how we would distribute this. Have messed my worksheet up a bit, unfortunately, got carried away, but let's distribute this anyways, which you would do through, because this is currently lying in the content library, and what we want is one copy of this sheet for each student, and you do this by clicking on the class notebook link up here, and then just straight onto distribute page, and what it will ask me is, where do you want to put this page? And this will go out to every student. It will go out twice because I've took 2 students. If you've got 100 students, it will go out 100 times. I just choose where I want it to go. So I want it to go in this section. This hasn't been worked. Oh, there we go. My button's come up, and then click on distribute. And it will go into the section within the student areas where it says pH scale. And it says it's done. Shall we see if it's in? Let's see if it's in Stanley's area. And there it is, it's arrived for him. So this is his own sheet now to work on when he's ready. A great feature with this is that because this is a collaborative tool, I can access this page at the same time that Stanley accesses it. So I can actually see him working on the sheet, which comes into its own if you're teaching very young children. I do know of primary schools where children as young as, 6 and 7 are using this. We're using this remotely because the teacher or teaching assistant could get in and have a look what they were doing and see how they were writing the maths and how, what they were writing and things like that. And they could put encouraging comments down the side and offer advice. So that's quite a unique thing to be able to do. Sorry, terrible spelling there. So this is because I'd edited it before I distributed it, it sent it with my edits out, but you can imagine that I should have said this before I started fiddling with it. And then as Stanley comes in and works on this worksheet, when I go back to review student work under the class notebook tab here, it should tell me who has edited the page and who hasn't. So it's under this one, isn't it? So they would actually, I should have edited it. I should have logged in as Stanley and edited it. But you can imagine that this, his name would be highlighted if he'd edited it. So essentially nobody's edited it yet. So it does tell me if he's edited it. So that's one way of knowing that they've had a go with your page, which is why it's great to use the distribute page feature. This only happens when you use the distribute page feature. You could obviously access everybody's area, so you could copy and paste it in manually if you only had a couple of students, but this really helps with you knowing then who's accessed it. Right then, so that's kind of how you distribute the pages via class notebook. The next thing to show you is that you can actually distribute the pages via Teams. So I'll see if I can show you that next. I just have to find Teams. I think I set up a team. Right. So here we go. So I'm just sorting that out. So this is my Teams, and I've set up this team called Test Year 7 Chemistry, so I can remember to delete it afterwards. And when you set up an assignment, I'm in the General tab of it, and I'm going to create a new assignment here. What I've already done is created a class notebook within the team. So I clicked on this tab here, first of all, and created my class notebook. It's not quite loaded yet. In just the same way as you would create it from the class notebook app. And it has added in the students automatically, which were the students that I had in the team. So I added my students to the team first. It doesn't matter which way around to do it. So every time a new student is added to the team, it will add them to the class notebook. So this class notebook is totally embedded within the team. Then when I go to assignments, it means that I can set up a new assignment. Create, that's it, an assignment. I've already put that sheet in that I made, the one about the pH testing. So I'm creating a new assignment. I'll call it pH. I'm not going to enter the instructions. I should do and say, have a look through the OneNote and answer the questions. When I add the resources for it, this is where you would normally add in Word documents and things like that. Instead of searching my OneDrive for my Word documents, I'm going to go to Class Notebook, and it's going to look within the Class Notebook that's attached to this team. And then if I look in the Content Library, that's my task there. If I add that, attach it, it's not really a task, it is just a sheet that I've called task, and I want to add it into the homework area. When I created this class notebook, I didn't change the default settings for the sections, so that could have changed if you wanted it to. And then I can assign that, and that will assign that particular page to every student within that team. You can change the due date, obviously. I just left it at the default. And then when they look at the assignment, hopefully, if I look at the version for Stanley, even though I'm not logged in as him, it will give us an idea of what it looks like. And what it's done is it's sucked that page into Teams, and they can actually go in and edit it within Teams here. And you can still type on here if you want to, offer some kind of feedback within the actual body of the sheet, or you can leave your feedback here and add points and what have you, like you would normally do on a Teams assignment. And this is actually, if you've done any of the assignments set from the EdTech demo project that you're actually working on at the moment, this is exactly how we set up our assignments within your teams, so it may look familiar. Okay, so that's using it through Teams. So obviously you've got the added advantage of it being a Teams assignment and you can use the stats and stuff. Let's have a quick look at creating a worksheet. See how much time I've got, a few minutes. So as I said, it is a free form style. The free form style of OneNote, it allows a lot of flexibility in both the creation of the worksheet and the way that students can respond to it. And I think it does really kind of like encourage creativity, but also the biggie is it does allow for the use of the Access for All tools as you're doing it. And I mentioned again that you can observe the results in real time. I'm just going to point out on here before, so I don't have to come back to it, that I have the bottom of this, which is in the chat. I've put some further reading, which are really just links to the Microsoft site on courses to do with Class Notebook. You can use these then for your one of the MIE assignment with us. Right, so let's have a look at creating a new class notebook. So you might already know that your OneNote app is under the waffle. I've just opened up my all apps under the waffle, but there's also one called Class Notebook. So to create a new class notebook and to manage it, i.e. have new teachers or students, you need to be in the Class Notebook app. If you just want to access it for general use, you would access it via OneNote. So I'm going to go to Class Notebook. And I'm going to create a class notebook. Obviously, this is where you would add and remove students by going back to here and then selecting the appropriate class notebook that you wanted to edit. And I'm going to call it, should I call it Class 2 and pretend we're at a primary school now. And it's going to tell me exactly what it's going to do when I create this. So it's saying it's going to create me a collaboration space where everyone can add content and edit it, a content library where the teacher can add content and the students can view it, teacher-only section just for teachers, no access at all via students, and student notebooks where the teacher can edit the content and students can only edit their own notebook, but they can't view or access other people's. We don't get any choice on that structure. At this point, you can give other teachers permission, but you can also add them using the Manage section, and you can add in your students. So I'll just add in Oliver, who's one of our test students. And at this point, you can decide what your sections are going to be. It offers you some defaults, and it's quite good to get this right first time because it's quite, you know, tricky to add sections later. So I'm going to call this, I'm going to pretend this is for topic work. So I'm going to add space and World War II. What other topics do kids do? I'm just going to put science generally. So right, next, there are my 3 sections. It's going to give me a view of what my teachers, from the teacher's point of view, I'm going to see these sections and all my students, and from the student's point of view, they're going to see the sections they're allowed access to and their own section with their new topics, which I've created for them. And that looks great, so I'll go create. Might take a few minutes. Hey, it's asking, oh, I don't really want to do that. I opt out of that. Oh, there we go. So at this point, it's saying opening OneNote or opening OneNote online, and that's this would open one of the client software on my PC, one of the apps, and this will just open it online. So I'm going to work online at the moment and have a look at my new class notebook. And the first thing we need to do is create a worksheet. So I might make that on space in the space section. Feeling quite confident that I know something about space. I'm going to create it in the content library, which is only viewable by students and editable by me. These introductory pages that you get, you can delete them if you want to. So I think on this one, I'm going to add a new page and call it space. I should have only made a section, but anyway, we'll go with this. And what could we put on this? So solar system, let's add a picture to get us started. So you can just copy and paste images from the web. Obviously check to make sure you have permission to use them first. If they're free license free, this one's partners, I'll finish that one. Copy image, and that should paste straight in. Oh, it's going to be a link. Copy image. I copied it right. And that will put that in. And then what activities? You could write something about how there's 8 planets in the solar system. You can or a planet at a peak. Ask them to copy and paste an image in there. And then we could put tell me why. And at that point, if they wanted to, they could have it, they could dictate it, or they could just type it out and tell you why that's their favourite. And we could maybe say on the image above, could you know, you could put this question in and say, identify. Oh, sorry, I removed it. By Earth on this image, and then they could kind of draw that you can draw on top of the images, is what I'm trying to say. So that might work quite well. So now I've lost it. I can set it again. There we go. So you get that kind of like two-way process of the students can add images, you can add images, you could ask them to go search you a video clip, you could add in a video clip for them to watch, you could ask them questions about it, you could embed a Microsoft form quiz for them to, you know, for a slightly more formal style of formative assessment, rather than just getting them to type in here. They work really well because they embed, so you don't actually have to leave the page or download anything. They could, as I said, you can draw on top of these images, so you could just say, if I ask them to identify Earth, they should by rights be able to just draw me a little thing like this to identify it. Or I did an example with geography, which was Oxbow Lakes, where you had to identify where was the destructive side, which was the constructive side. There's lots of different ways where it would be nice to be able to then just point it out with a drawing on it. And that's kind of like how you would work through and add information and get for them to participate with. You can insert PDFs, which I'll just demonstrate now. So if I go to insert, if you do already have a PDF worksheet, you can insert it as a printout. So I've just got one that I've downloaded off the internet. I think it's to do with maths. There it is. And it will actually put it, because I've asked it to create it as a printout, it will put the entire sheet in like this. So you could, by rights, put a sheet in like this, and students could either write with this, particularly if they've got a digital pen, they could write the answers in, or they can, you know, create a little text box, put the answer in there, and then move it into the correct place if you don't want to either try and draw with the mouse or what have you. So there is ways of editing these sheets that work quite well. If you want, The only issue with doing this way is that this is not accessible, in that the immersive reader wouldn't read this to you, and splitting it up and adding the text in as real text would work, I feel, a lot better. But if you had a lot of worksheets that you wanted to use, and this was a good stopgap measure, then that's one way of doing it. And that's about everything I wanted to show you, and I have just run out of time, so I'll just come back to the chat and see if anyone's got any questions. I feel like that was a very quick whistle-stop tour, so I hope you got something out of it. Has anybody got any?
Great, Rebecca, thank you.
It's okay. Has anybody actually used this notebook before in this sort of way?
I'm about to look at rolling it out with quite a large cohort, so just get my head around it really, and just seeing if it does what I need it to do. But, yeah, I think it will allow us the interactivity as well is good. So what I've just seen you do there is really encouraging, because I was a bit concerned it was literally very script based with the worksheets. You could only really do question answer, but what you've done looks like you can be a bit more inventive.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you do want to add in questions. I haven't actually shown you the maths features, but you can convert. There's lots of good maths tools in there. I'm sure we will have videos on the EdTech, and I mean, just message me if you want me to find you a video on them, because that might, with you working in construction, that might help. But yeah, as regards putting in, if you do want questions and answers like multiple choice questions, your best bet, I mean, the forms, you can add a form in directly within a Microsoft form in, and it will embed it in and just show it as questions. So that's quite a nice way of adding that in. I tend to work with the primary schools, so this kind of thing is obviously really useful for them, for the students who don't, because little kids don't want to have to download a Word document and complete it and then upload it again. It's just too technical. They want to be able to access it directly on the sheet they're looking at, and they want to write where the question is, and that's kind of what I like about it. But it is also really useful for older students, in that it has got that bit of flexibility with it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
No problem. All right, thank you very much then.
Cheers, bye.
Thanks, Rebecca. Cheers.